You sit alone in the pitch-black center of a 6-foot reinforced steel cell. Your hands are bound in titanium locks. The air smells of salt, rust, and ozone. This is the Raft. 400 feet below the churning Atlantic Ocean, the water pressure outside could crush a submarine. Inside, you are surrounded by the 30 worst monsters you ever put away. And 40 seconds ago, every cell door on level 4 popped open. The red emergency lights pulse against the cold concrete walls. An alarm blares overhead, vibrating through the metal floor directly into your boots. You don't have your suit. You don't have your web shooters. You are wearing gray prison scrubs and a heavy power-dampening collar around your neck. The metal is freezing cold against your spine. Across the hall, heavy footfalls echo through the corridor. Heavy, rhythmic, bone-shattering footfalls. Rhino steps into the faint red light, turning his massive head directly toward your doorway. His eyes are yellow and bloodshot in the dim reflection. Behind him, a low buzz begins to build in the dark. Electro shifts, static electricity cracking off his fingertips like blue needles. Then comes the metallic scraping of steel against steel. Scorpion drags his tailored tail along the catwalk, leaving a deep groove in the iron. They aren't trying to escape. They aren't looking for a flight out to international waters. They know you're in here, stripped of your gear, chained to a concrete slab. They came down here for an execution. Rhino lunges forward, his shoulder slamming into your cell door like an artillery shell. The steel door buckles inward with a deafening screech. You don't panic. You close your eyes and breathe in slow, counting the seconds between the pulsing sirens. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Your inner ear twitches. The familiar high-pitched ring begins at the base of your skull. Your spider sense isn't gone. It's just buried under the high-frequency hum of the dampening collar. Rhino hits the door again. The heavy hinges snap with the sound of a rifle shot, and the steel plate hurtles into the room. You roll to the side, pulling your bound hands over your knees just as the door crushes the concrete bench where you were sitting. Dust and concrete powder fill the small space. Scorpion strikes through the haze, his sharp tail plunging down toward your chest. You lean back at an impossible angle, the poison-dripping spike missing your neck by less than an inch. It buries itself deep into the iron floor. Before he can retract it, you leap into the air, wrapping your heavy titanium wrist chains around the length of his tail. You twist your entire body in midair, leveraging momentum against his center of gravity. Scorpion screams as his own mechanical limb snaps sideways, yanked with 4,000 pounds of raw force. He stumbles forward, crashing headfirst into the wall. The shockwave sends a tremor through the concrete floor. You land softly on the toes of your bare feet. Electro steps into the doorway, his face twisted into a cruel grin. A sudden arc of blue lightning erupts from his palms, filling the narrow cell with blinding light and scorching heat. You don't move away from the blast, you dive straight through it. The raw voltage slams into your chest, blistering your skin and setting your clothes on fire. It surges down your neck and directly into the internal circuitry of the power-dampening collar. The small red light on your neck turns yellow, sparks once, and dies. The heavy iron collar pops open with a heavy click, dropping to the floor. The full weight of your senses floods back in a split second. The world slows down to a crawl. You can hear the heartbeats of 60 men down the hall. You can feel the micro-vibrations of the ocean currents pressing against the outer bulkhead. You can see the precise trajectory of Electro's next electrical arc before the lightning even leaves his skin. You spring off the back wall, driving both knees straight into Electro's jaw. The force carries both of you out of the cell and onto the central catwalk. He hits the metal mesh floor unconscious before his body stops sliding. Below you, the central hub of the Raft is a war zone. Guard towers are burning, black smoke rolling up toward the high-vaulted ceiling. Dozens of costumed felons are tearing through the security command centers. At the center of the control deck stands the warden's console. The primary purge button is flashing red. If the automated system triggers the protocol, the Raft will flood every sector with toxic gas to kill the population. Guard, prisoner, hero, it doesn't differentiate. You have less than 8 minutes before the automated purge locks down the entire facility permanently. And standing directly on top of the main console is Tombstone, holding a broken steel girder like a baseball bat. Beside him, Shocker aligns both of his arm-mounted vibro cannons toward the security glass. You hit the deck in a dead sprint along the upper catwalk. Rhino charges behind you, tearing down the support beams as he follows. The entire catwalk section beneath your feet gives way, collapsing into the dark abyss 4 stories below. You jump. You reach out, snagging a loose dangling power cable with one hand. You swing across the open cavern of the prison block, momentum carrying you in a soaring arc through the smoke. Shocker spots you in midair and fires a concentrated vibrational blast. The air shockwave hits you like a freight train, tearing your grip from the cable and throwing you sideways through the air. You crash hard through the thick, reinforced glass of the central control room. Shattered glass rains down across the tile floor. You roll through the landing, coming up on one knee directly in front of Tombstone. He smiles, his rock-hard gray skin glistening under the flickering emergency lights. He swings the heavy steel girder straight at your temple. You slip under the massive bar, feeling the wind of its passage brush your hair. You drive a right hook directly into his ribs. It feels like punching an anvil, but the impact sends a shockwave through his dense muscle tissue. He staggers back half a step, gasping for air. Shocker raises his gauntlets again, charging the capacitors with a high-pitched whine. You grab Tombstone by his heavy leather lapels, spinning his massive body around to use him as a human shield. The vibrational beam hits Tombstone square in the back, the massive force knocking both of you into the main computer terminal. The console shatters, sparks exploding in a shower of white fire. The digital countdown timer on the main wall skips from 4 minutes down to 40 seconds. The automated lockdown sequence has malfunctioned. The heavy hydraulic blast doors begin to slide shut around the perimeter, locking every exit forever. Above you, the ceiling begins to crack under the immense pressure of the ocean outside. A jet of freezing Atlantic seawater blasts through a structural fissure, slamming onto the command deck with violent force. The glass walls of the control center are splintering under the weight of the sea. Rhino breaks through the rubble at the main entrance, roaring as he prepares for one final charge. You don't have time to fight him. You don't have time to find a weapon. You slide across the slick floor, grabbing the heavy fallen steel girder Tombstone dropped. You jam the steel beam vertically beneath the main blast door just as it descends. The metal screeches under the weight of thousands of tons of hydraulic force. The beam bends, buckling slightly, but it holds the massive door open by 2 feet. You turn around and face the room. Rhino is coming at you full speed, his head down, massive horn aimed directly at your chest. You step into his path. You catch the horn with both bare hands. Your boots dig into the steel floor, tearing up the metal plates as you are pushed backward inch by inch. The friction burns through the soles of your shoes. The structural concrete behind you crumbles under your back. You scream, pushing every ounce of strength into your legs, forcing your body to act as a physical stop. The momentum halts. Rhino stops dead in his tracks, his eyes wide in disbelief as your hands hold his massive head completely still. You twist his horn sideways, snapping his balance, and drive your elbow into the side of his neck. He drops to his knees, his massive body hitting the floor with a heavy thud. The ceiling above fully ruptures. A wall of roaring seawater cascades down into the central chamber, flooding the lower levels in seconds. The water reaches your knees, icy cold, and pulling with lethal force toward the open drainage grates. You sprint toward the jammed blast door. You reach into the jammed mechanism with your bare hands, grabbing the internal hydraulic cables. You pull with all your strength, ripping the heavy steel wires completely free from their housings. The primary lock snaps. The blast door shoots upward with a sudden hiss of pneumatic pressure, opening the main exit corridor. The remaining guards and incapacitated inmates are washed through the opening by the surging water. You stand in the narrow doorway, holding the heavy steel frame against the rushing flood with your back. You hold the line until every single person is swept past you into the safe sector beyond. Your muscles are burning, torn, and bleeding. Your vision edges with blackness as the cold sea rises to your chest. With one final surge of energy, you throw yourself backward through the gap just as the steel beam snaps in half. The massive blast door slams down with a deafening boom, sealing the flooded sector completely off. Silence falls over the secondary corridor. The emergency lights flip from red to green. You lie on the wet concrete floor, staring up at the bare fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Your chest heaves as you breathe in the cold, stale air of the safe block. You look down at your bloody, torn hands, shivering from the ocean water. You are exhausted, battered, and completely alone in the dark. You sit up slowly, resting your elbows on your knees as the heavy security alarms fade into the distance. You look back toward the sealed iron door, listening to the muffled pressure of the ocean pounding against the metal. You sit alone in the pitch-black center of a reinforced steel cell.